There are many skilled youngsters floating around the lower levels of the Counter-Strike scene. One of the most promising is malbsMd. The Guatemalan has elevated teamone to a level beyond what remains of the American scene, forcing them to make the demanding transition to European Counter-Strike. The young headshot machine is an explosive fragger, whose impact has brought his team all the way to the ESL Pro League, where he will take on his toughest competition yet. I'm T, he is malbs, and this is Prospects. Before we get into the rest of it, I just want to say thank you. We've just broken 400 subscribers and we're still growing, so a big thank you to all of you who've been following the channel recently. Anyone who promoted it on Twitter. I know some pros, some other type of content creators have actually been, been really supportive of my work, so big thank you. Here's to 400 more. There can be no doubt, malbs is one of the finest aimers in the game today. Most who maintain a headshot percentage of around 60% rarely do so on high volume, and also rarely do so whilst playing so aggressively. His aim with rifles is one thing, but he's also so incredibly effective on pistols, like the Deagle especially. This is quite an important factor, as Team 1 lose so many rounds that malbs practically spends half of his game with a Deagle instead of a rifle. In fact, the hand cannon makes up almost 13% of his kills over the last 3 months, which is a figure I have never seen anyone come close to matching. Malbs also has the spray control to win more extended fights or to win fights against multiple opponents, something that's necessary when his headshot doesn't land. He has the confidence to make reads and take the initiative, making calls for himself to push or extend into areas based off of the information he's got from his teammates and his own intuition. This creates fast flanks and opportunities for malbs to close out rounds when in other cases they'd be almost impossible given the position he started in. Malbs' decision making in these scenarios as well as in clutch situations has led to him having a 77% win rate in 1v1s, as well as picking up several 1v2s and 1v3s, considering how rarely he actually ends up in these scenarios because he's usually quite early on in both sides of the kill feed in almost every round. It's impressive to notice how many he's actually won. His win rate is quite good on clutches. Finally, malbs' mechanics extend beyond just his aim. His movement, for example, is buttery smooth. It doesn't actually come into play that often, but it does show off and highlight how much work malbs has put in to mastering his craft. Malbs' CT sides have many similarities across the maps I've watched. We start with a bit of util dumping, chucking down molotovs and smokes to delay rushes, delay pushes, and then, gain control over the basic areas the CTs should have. He'll then often play quite close to his utility or just behind it, facing, jiggling, spraying, just to make sure the Ts can't push it for free early on. Once all that fades and the dust settles, malbs then makes the decision of either pushing through it, going for that info, going for that extra fight, going for that extra play, or retreating back to the bomb site and playing a safer, less aggressive angle. malbs plays banana on Inferno, and he uses a variety of util sets to control different amounts of the banana. I wanted to speak about his Inferno specifically because there's a lot of diversity to the way he plays around banana. The most aggressive we see malbs around banana is typically on Deagle rounds, where you'll see him maybe use one smoke deep to isolate a T inside the banana itself, then he just swings around the short wall and tries to take the fight. This util set can also be used with extra nades in a full buy M4 round like here, where he also does run out, take that fight, and pick up the kill. A more standard anti-rush type of util is used on rounds where malbs decides not to go running out fighting everyone. First, a molly goes out just beyond the short wall, then a flashbang follows it up, just to delay that extra second or two. This is then typically followed up with a nade stack and a swing for another fight. On other maps where there's less CT variety, you still see malbs taking those early fights behind all that util. On Nuke, he'll play quite brazenly behind his ramp smoke, usually jumping up on this ledge and then, facing behind it as it's popping. Oftentimes he's there before it's even blocking vision, but he'll start spamming as soon as it does. malbs' style of B-short play on Mirage is essentially just another mid player. Team 1 like to fight for mid, and malbs just comes running up short, always fighting, and especially on anti-ecos where he makes 100% sure they're not getting mid for free. Finally, on Dust 2, he plays long, and it's a much more chaotic type of area to hold. Far fewer clean sightlines are available to the CTs, so he's often just jumping into pit as early as possible, and then looking for fights, looking for peaks. What makes malbs so effective on the CT side is the amount of information and counterplay he finds when the teams don't fully keep him in check. I mean, this is a proper 1 or 2 man job just holding malbs in. He's of course a threat when challenged because his aim is exemplary, but when he's unchallenged, he's quick to just make that extra push, go look for those openings, and also go look for those fast flanks and look for those closeouts. One thing malbs does seem to really suck at, to be honest, is just saving his gun on the CT side. I found a couple of occasions where he took the extra chance to go looking for a kill, pick up a deagle when he'd killed one of the saving players. Things that really you shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be wasting your gun on these sloppy little things, but it's happened twice in 4 demos. Like, it's a bit too much of a trend for my liking. I'm sure this is something that will get ironed out by a more disciplined IGL maybe, or a coach having a word, because these are free guns you're giving away. malbs' T side actually starts in much the same way as CT side does, with a utility dump. On Mirage, he's often tasked with holding the mid area, so he uses a molly interconnector and then a flashbang a little shorter just to catch any of those aggressing CTs and allowing him to have that early control. Inferno is a perpetual battle for early banana control, so most of his util is expended there, where he's either setting up teammates or setting himself up alone. Interestingly enough, the only time Team 1 likes to use 2 people in banana is when malbs is throwing util for them. When malbs is involved in that take, he's usually alone. Nuke provides an interesting exception, where his role is mostly to sit and watch the ramp smoke that the CTs throw to make sure they're not pushing through it, so he actually doesn't use much util at all. What he actually does is use the nade that he has to break Squeaky early, or maybe flashbang out Squeaky if someone else is there first. But early on in those rounds, that's typically where you see him using his util. Once the boring map control stuff is out of the way, malbs gets to work as an entry fragger. Now, a vast number of malbs T-side rounds end the same way. He dies, and then he gets traded. How many malbs takes with him, and then how many his team can find off the back of his death, basically dictates how well a Team 1 round is going to go, from what I've noticed. Round 25 on Dust 2, we see a great example of malbs' entry work. He starts with a methodical clear out of lower tunnels and this boost to peek up onto short. It must be noted earlier in the game, he had been taken down by the AWP, pushed up onto short, and from that point onwards took a much more careful and structured approach to it. After using the molly to clear short, make 100% sure the AWP is not lurking about there, him and Pesadillo jump up onto the Xbox and into short. They actually throw the execute utility from the stairs area, but then have to wait out the CT counter molly before finally getting to push to site. On the way in, only malbs is able to catch a body. He's the only guy to find a kill, taking out the AWP with a nice pre-fire on the site. He goes down, and because no one can get anything else done, no one can trade, the round falls apart, and that's the only kill Team 1 are able to find. malbs is best utilized as the second man in, because on this team, he is the most likely to get the multi-kill. Round 13 of Mirage displays how, because malbs' teammate takes the initial aggro, takes the initial death, allowing malbs to actually get up short really quick and catch out the CTs, getting 2 kills and opening up the round completely. There does come in the occasional lurk from malbs, where he's one of the last alive and allowed to come in and find kills late. Mirage brought us one great example where he lurks through mid into connector, and he's at this point left in a 2v4 with his teammate. His teammate trades himself out 1-for-1, and he's left in a 1v3. He finds the first through the edge of the connector smoke, which was poorly thrown, before sneaking his way into jungle as the short players finally stopped harassing him. His smoke aims to block CT, which was the last known location of one of the CTs, as well as a best guess of where the other one could be, as he was on B previously. As he crosses to face site, his pre-aim onto triple gets him the first kill, before the other CT swings out to trade, can't hit the shot, and he gets him through the edge of the box. These lurks, though few in number, have been a goldmine for malbs, as his aim and game sense allow him to triumph over multiple enemies, when given the proper opportunity. malbs will one day make the leap into Tier 1 Counter-Strike. Whether this team comes with him or not is a different question. What will truly be a test of the youngster's abilities is the upcoming ESL Pro League group stage, where he'll go head-to-head with 5 of the world's top teams. If malbs is able to perform at something close to his normal level, I don't expect him to end this year on Team 1. That being said, I'd rather he stayed out of big teams or top teams for at least another year. Playing his playstyle involves a lot of failure, a lot of death for the team, and having poor statistical performances, not necessarily consistently, but map to map, there's a great deal of variety in this sort of entry player's stats. Combine this with the pressures of stepping up to the next level, and the possibility of his career ending before it's truly begun becomes scarily real. But fuck negative thinking, we're here to hype the future of the game. malbs is a beast who can find a frag no matter what gun you put in his hands. You'll be hearing his name for years to come. Okay, thank you for watching the video. I remember a while ago I promised I'd try to upload twice a week. I technically tried. Apologies. Like if you enjoyed the video, sub for more content, and yeah, leave a comment telling me your thoughts about malbs. If you think he's got that potential, if he's got that spark to make it, I certainly think he does. Okay, that's all for this one. Goodbye.